What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. That's right, the only sports podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. How we doing today, Casino?
Doing pretty good. Got about an hour and a half sleep. Feeling great.
Yeah. You know what? No time for pleasantries today because we have no time to shoot the shit.
I kept it simple. Keep going.
We're going right through it, Casino. So first up,
It reminded me of my last weekend. Had food poisoning. All right, let's go.
The Casino, no dilly-dallying. You want to dilly-dally, you want to talk about things. The only thing I want to talk about is the Tuesday talking points. That's what we call it. That's what we call it here. And our first one today, Casino, I don't know if you know this or not, but there was a Heisman winner over the weekend. And he was, of course, Travis Hunter of Colorado, the wide receiver slash cornerback. And the slash right there is why most people think he won the
That's
award.
why he won. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that is why he won the award. So thoughts on him basically winning the award. Everybody knew he was going to win, but there was a slim chance that Ashton Genty would.
It blows my mind. So I've talked about my Patriots group chat in here, and I actually had my two friends who are brothers in this chat. He brought up one is for Genty and one was for Hunter, and it was a great postings of this. That offensive grade for Hunter was like 5th, their coverage was 3rd, receiving touchdowns was 4th, was the most in Power 4, so not even Power 5. Receiving yards 3rd in Power 4, interceptions 4th in Power 4. So, and then 9th among passer rating allowed, 9th among Power 4. So again, Power 4, Power 4, Power 4, and everybody's whole thing about, oh, well, Genty's in a worse conference, Gentry's in a lower conference, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. You're still in a Power 4. Like, you couldn't do this in a Power 5, I'm sure, for Travis Hunter. Sorry, I hate that Travis Hunter won. I thought he got gypped because Genty was doing things that have never been done. He was setting records that have never been, that he broke records for his season. 4th most all time for rushing yards at 2,497. 29 rushing touchdowns, 6th most all time. Rushing grade, he had the highest in PFF college era. Yards after contact, most in PFF college era. And forced missed tackles, most in PFF college era. Those are 3 things that have never been done before. He did those things. And 4th all time and 6th all time in Power 4, Power 5, in all of college football, and he does not win this. It blows my mind. Do you have anything more to add on this? Because I'm just so done. I'm just so done with it. I can't believe he didn't win.
Yeah, I would say it would have been interesting if he would have broke, the single season rushing record and all that kind of stuff, because then it really would have been like, well, do we give it to the guy who's really good? He's very good at being corner, and then he's like a top 10 wide receiver in the league, or do we give it to this guy who's the all-time blah blah blah? But we're not playing hypotheticals. So the difference in the votes was the smallest margin of victory since 2009 for the Heisman. So Travis Hunter got 2,231 total votes, or total points, I should say, and Genty got 2,017 total points. So again, close margin. When you look at their stats comparison, Ashton Genty is number 1 in every running back stat in the nation. Travis Hunter, 6th in receiving yards, 5th in receptions, 2nd in receiving touchdowns, and then 17th in interceptions. So that is where he excelled in. When you look at the Maxwell Award, which is voted by head coaches, sports writers, and sports information directors, Ashton Genty won. The Heisman Nissan fan vote, which was voted on by fans and football watchers around the country. I didn't vote on it. I don't think Casino did either. Ashton Genty also won. So of the 928 votes for the Heisman, 870 of those are members of the media. So that makes you kind of raise an eyebrow and be like, oh yeah, the most covered team this year was probably, and last year, and since Deion Sanders has gotten into Colorado, has been Colorado, obviously. So, yeah, I just think but again, Heisman and MVP and all that kind of stuff has always been like right place, right time. I mean, there's been wonderkins who have been in, contention for those awards after just having one good season. I don't think Travis Hunter he's an anomaly, but I don't think he is a mistake to be picked for the Heisman. I do think it should have been Genty. I'm not upset with it being Travis Hunter. I do think that there is something special about being, even if you want to say he's not the best wide receiver, the best corner in the league, you can at least say that he's top 10 on each side of the ball, which again is a thing. I don't, people I keep seeing this thing where other sports shows and sports talk shows and ESPN and Fox Sports and all that kind of stuff just keep doing this thing where like, we'll never see this again. We've never seen it in the past and like all that kind of stuff. And it's almost, it makes me just go like, yeah, but you get why. Like if you're a running back, if you're a wide receiver, if you're a cornerback, like why would you want to be the other, like if you play all the offensive snaps, why would you also want to play all the defensive snaps? That just seems like, again, in a sport that probably has the shortest shelf life for like elite athletes, right? Like if you're in Major League Baseball, if you're in basketball, like your body obviously still gets run down, but it doesn't get run down as much as the contact sports, especially, obviously the NFL and college football. So it just seems like putting unnecessary mileage on yourself to, again, like be just a great player on both sides of the ball is unique, but it just seems crazy to me, from not crazy like crazy, it obviously is crazy impressive, but more crazy like why would you put your body through that? And again, he's a young guy, so when he gets older he obviously won't be able to do this. As an old guy myself, I can attest to that, but when he gets to the NFL, I think he will transition to one of the two positions. If he wants to make money, he should probably go to the offensive side of the ball. If he wants to be elite at his position, I think he has a better chance of doing that at the cornerback position. Now, when we talk about Genty, I do think it's being held against him because he's in Boise State and not in one of, he's in the Mountain West, not one of the big conferences, quote unquote. But you also have to think there's also running backs on other Mountain West teams that are playing the same type of schedule that the Boise State team is playing, and they're not putting up the numbers he is. Boise State has had other running backs in the past who aren't putting up the numbers he's putting up. So to just kind of dismiss him as like, oh, well, it was just a good player in a bad conference. It's like, yeah, there's also other good players in bad conferences, and they're not putting up, like Casino was saying, like record breaking numbers and being fourth and fifth on the all time rushing touchdowns and rushing yards list and all that kind of stuff. It just seems like a weird way to dismiss him. And again, the same things were being said about Travis Hunter, which is just like dismissing him because of his connection to Deion Sanders, who people don't like for whatever reason. So yeah, I just think weird Heisman race, weird Heisman results and winners, and then weird Heisman stories afterwards where it was like all just about like, did you see Travis Hunter's girlfriend like do this and do that and not stand for him? And it's just like, I just don't understand what. And then the sports media, which I don't think we're a part of because we don't get paid to do this. But it just is one of those things where it's like, that's what the sports media covers and we talk about. And then afterwards, they're like, why do you hate us? Whenever they just start getting shit on, which we'll talk about upcoming when we talk about Eagles Steelers. It's just weird. It's just weird how things are covered now. And yeah, that's basically all we have to say about that. Good timing, Casino. Uh
Sorry, my daughter smashed her face into a door.
Jesus. Is
Yeah,
she
she's all
okay?
right. Yeah, she's gonna have a fat lip, but she was climbing on her chair, trying to grab something she wasn't supposed to. She was trying to be sneaky about it. So
Wow. So karma.
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 I made
Yeah.
sure she was okay. She's good now. She's gonna just lay on her bed for a minute.
All right.
Uh,
Well, we're done with the Heisman talk, which means we need to move on to number 4, casino. And number 4 is a topic I actually wanted your opinion on. I was like, do we talk about the Bill Belichick thing? But I feel like at this point that's such old news, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about that in the future. So the one I wanted your opinion on was, I don't know if you saw Thursday night's game, which was the Rams winning 12-6 against the San Francisco 49ers.
hmm.
The interesting thing to come out of that is, have you been following the Devondre Campbell ordeal?
Actually, I have not, but I did watch that game. That was a barn burner, right?
Uh,
Um, yeah, it was so awful. But what's going on with that? And I'll look it up. You just give me
so
the information on that.
Yeah, so this is according to the CNN Sports article I found about it. So I'll just read how they broke it down right here. The San Francisco 49ers have suspended linebacker Devondre Campbell for 3 games, aka the rest of this regular season, after he refused to enter his team's game in the third quarter of a 12-6 loss to the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday night. Uh, we have suspended Devondre Campbell for 3 games due to conduct detrimental to the team, 49ers president of football operations and general manager John Lynch said in a statement issued Monday. We have no further comment on the matter. Campbell was summoned to enter the game to replace Dre Greenlaw, who is making his return from an Achilles injury he sustained in last year's Super Bowl, but told head coach Kyle Shanahan that he would not play before walking to the locker room before the end of the game. So, thoughts on that situation,
Huh.
Casino?
Well, first off, I'm glad that Greenlaw was, getting back out there because I remember that he just was trying to get off the get off the
Yeah, just
sideline and
run
go in
onto the
for a
field.
play, and it snapped on him.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. You're getting paid to play professional football. You are getting paid a shit ton of money, money that I will never see in my lifetime, kind of money, and you just don't want to play. Like, is that all that's said about it? Is like there's no other information on why he didn't go out on the field? Um,
No. And
huh.
also so instead, and this is how, so all the players on the 49ers have basically came out and been very vocal about what, a piece of shit move and selfish. And somebody said that was some sucker shit, which was probably Brock Purdy. But
Yeah, no, he's. I mean, regardless, like he's done with the team, whatever. And I'll tell you right now, he's probably like that's gonna really screw his career.
Yeah, I think what is it? I think the biggest red flag of like, oh, this isn't okay, and we don't see this stuff all that often, was basically John Lynch came out and was like, we're not releasing him because we don't want to reward him with going to a better team. So when the general manager is basically being like, we don't want this player to have a chance to go to another team, not because we don't want to lose him, but because we think he's a piece of shit and we don't want to give him that opportunity. Like, that's when all of a sudden, like, I feel like the red flags go up and you just go like, oh, something is happening here that doesn't happen a lot. And we want to make an example of this guy so it doesn't happen, furthermore, because in this game, when he got pulled out of the game, he didn't stay on the sideline. He like left the sideline, went to the locker room, and was basically like, I'm done for today, which is, some Antonio Brown shit that we've seen before. And Antonio Brown, when he did it obviously in a more public fashion on the field, but after he did that, every other team was like, no thanks. Like, we're out. And then he hasn't
Yeah,
been in the league since.
it's
So,
in, it's insane. Like what that just that's a mind blowing situation. Like you don't just walk off on walk out on your team. You might have disagreements, and ask for a trade, but you don't expect to get out of a contract. Like if you have a contract signed, that's not up to you.
yeah. And also, he was only on a 1 year contract and he was playing basically only because Greenlaw couldn't. So when Greenlaw is able to come back, like, Greenlaw is one of the best linebackers in the entire league. On what planet do you think you're just going to keep that position? Like when he's ready to come back in, it just seems just what a weird, again, that's why I wanted to talk about it. What a weird story.
Yeah,
And again, add that to the pile of shit that the 49ers have had to deal with all season long, with injuries and with their record
and
and
having that them and having that as a coach,
yeah, and then also just what is it? Having to potentially pay Purdy $60 million after this offseason.
he's
So,
not going to get paid that.
well, that's apparently what he's asking for with that team. So, I mean, that can just be a side topic in this topic, Casino. What do you think happens with Purdy with this team? You think he's still a 49er next year?
No, because they're not going to pay him that much. I mean, he might get that much on another team, but he's not going to get paid that much from the Niners. Won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think he will either. I don't know if he'll take a team friendly deal. Maybe they just try to, what is it, franchise tag him. But still, even I feel like if you franchise tagged him with the quarterbacks, would his salary still be like $40 million for 1 year?
Something insane, yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next one, Casino, which is I have a bunch of teams here. And the question being asked is actually what questions got answered? So I feel like this was the week where we really got separated from the contenders, the pretenders, the teams that are going to win their divisions, the teams that aren't going to win their divisions. So let's dive right into that. I'll start talking, and then hopefully Casino will come back and jump in to these discussions. But first up, let's talk about the maybe the most shocking game of the week, just in terms of what the score was, what the winning team was, all that kind of stuff. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now 8-6, won 40-17 against the Los Angeles Chargers, 8-6. So the questions that was in this game was, are the Chargers contenders? Are the Buccaneers the leading choice to win the NFC South? And I think the Buccaneers will win the NFC South, especially from what we saw on Monday night with the Falcons and just how awful Kirk Cousins has been for the last, what, 2 months at this point. Like, he started the season just red hot, and everybody was like, in us included, we're like, oh, the Falcons found their quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Like, enjoy the bench, Michael Penix, because Cousins going to take this team to the moon, to the playoffs, everything, blah, 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 blah. And then we saw just a slow decline where now he is throwing for just 112 yards, I believe, on Monday Night Football. So, yeah, but we're talking about the Bucks and the Saints, or the Bucks and the Chargers right now. Buccaneers, if they win out, they win the NFC South, which is crazy considering the Falcons beat this team twice, and yet still the Buccaneers have rallied back and won, I think, their last three. This one being the most impressive, killing the Chargers 40-17. Baker Mayfield threw an interception early and then was damn near perfect the rest of the game. 22 for 27, 288, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Bucky Irving has also just come on as a great running back. And when you watch him run, he runs hard. 15 for 117 in this game, averaging almost 8 yards a carry. Again, almost averaging 8 yards a carry against a Harbaugh run defense is probably the most impressive thing. But the question, Casino, is with this Buccaneers Chargers game, did the Buccaneers solidify themselves as the NFC South division winner?
Definitely. All day. 100%. Yeah, when that puts them up 2 games now, and yeah,
Yeah,
2 games.
they win out, they win that division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And,
it's gonna happen. They're too good of a team. I like how Baker and Mike Evans having a hell of a game as well. Him coming back, and it's over. I would not want to play this team in the postseason at all.
Yeah, and then when we look at the AFC, on that side of the ball, Casino, we have the Chargers hanging on for dear life in that 7th spot as, an 8-6 team, but they're hanging on for dear life with nobody to chase them from behind. Because the next closest one would be the Bengals, Dolphins, Colts, which are crazy that both the Bengals and Dolphins are on the bubble to still get into the playoffs. I mean, the Dolphins only have a 7% chance. The Bengals only have a 5% chance, but obviously crazier things have happened. So the Chargers most likely will get into the playoffs, but as Casino has said multiple times, they are the best worst team that isn't going to do anything. And again, when you watch the Chargers play, first off, they didn't have J.K. Dobbins in this game. So Gus Edwards was 8 carries, 23 yards, only average 2.8 yards a carry. So the Buccaneers also, when you look at their run defense, I don't believe they are that bad. Yeah, they are 11th in the league in total rush defense. So they have a good running defense. And again, the Chargers kind of got exposed on defense in the passing game despite oh, they're running it. They're rushing. Their rushing defense also being 19th in the league. So, yeah, their defense got exposed. Their offense got exposed for what most people, us included, have been saying all season, which is you basically have McConkey and then a bunch of guys who probably would be third, fourth, fifth string on most other teams. So the Chargers really missing offensive playmakers, offensive weapons, both in the running back room and the wide receiver room. And despite that, Herbert, 21 for 33, 195, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. McConkey, the leading receiver with 5 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown. He really does seem like him and Johnston seem like the security blankets, but again, they're twos, maybe threes on most really good teams. So for them to be the number one option on this team just shows when the Chargers have to get into a shootout, they can't, which is why I feel like most the season has just been them, trying to run the ball, try to play that Michigan style defense that Harbaugh brought over from college, and it's worked. They're 8-6, but I think that's all it is because when you look at the top NFC and AFC contenders, they can beat you most of them with running, passing, and they have all the weapons on offense. So, yeah, I think the questions answered in this game were Buccaneers are going to win the NFC South, and Chargers will make the playoffs, but they won't. I think they're going to be one and done. Next up, let's talk about the Texans game, which if I could find it right now, yeah, the Texans go to 9-5 and win 20-12 against the Miami Dolphins. Casino. What questions, if any, did this game answer for you for the
Zero. It's still the same exact Texans as old. What it tells me, Tua, Tyreek, great, but outside of that, Dolphins suck. And then for the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud, he's a good quarterback, but I mean, did they just lose their magic? Is this team still the same team from last year, but just without the magic, without the oomph that everybody had?
Yeah, they are weirdly similar to the Chargers, which is they're a team we know are going to be in the playoffs, and then they're a team when they're in the playoffs, you're not going to pick any other team against them, right? Unless the Texans and Chargers end up playing, and then it's you throw your hands up and go, I don't know, but you're not going to pick the Texans against any other AFC team. Probably, I don't know if I would pick them against the Broncos at this point. They just seem so they're winning, but the wins aren't impressive, and they don't have the pedigree to win like that, like the Chiefs do, where you at least have to give them the benefit of the doubt. So, also, yeah, CJ Stroud didn't he hasn't been having the season we thought he would. Maybe it is the sophomore slump that is true and he'll just bounce back next year, but yeah, weird season for the Texans. And then
Yeah,
obviously,
last year they had the tingles. This year, I don't know.
yeah, the I
I
can't
was
even
trying
think
Yeah, I
the
was trying to
link.
think of something fun that rhymes with tingles.
And then for the Dolphins, they just got hot too late and then kind of cooled off too soon. That's I feel like the best way to put it. They
Miami
just
weather.
yeah, it's just and then Tua, I mean, you can make a declaration that Tua is a top 5 quarterback one week and a bottom 5 quarterback the next. Like, just the hot and coldness he has is much like his record in the hot and cold, just not good. Um,
He dove forward again in this game. I thought he was about to get another concussion.
oh god. Yeah. And well, that's the also thing is he's always the injury threat, the injury worry is
Well, he
always in
does
the
it to
back of your head.
himself every single time.
Well, yeah,
You're
that's
diving
the weird
forward,
part.
don't dive head first.
We briefly mentioned it in the last segment, Casino. So the Rams win an ugly, ugly game, 12-6 on Thursday night. With the Rams, obviously the 49ers, we both have said they've been dead for weeks now and out of the playoff picture. But for the Rams, are they now officially the NFC West division winner?
Yeah, I don't have any faith in the Seahawks there. So I think the Rams are gonna take this. And I like the Cardinals, but the Rams are a better team.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are feisty. The Seahawks, again, Geno Smith is so inconsistent, and now he got knocked out of that game Sunday night with an injury. So now,
Yeah.
if he's also dealing with a lingering injury, Rams got healthy at the right time. They might have the best win of the season, beating the Bills the way
And
they
again,
did.
they might have the best receiver in
Yeah, Puka
with Puka
Nakua.
Nakua.
Yeah, and then they have a
My daughter
young
just got excited.
defense. Rams have a young defense. They might have the defensive rookie of the year in verse as well. So young defense, young offense, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. Again, Rams are going to be dangerous if they get into the playoffs, which right now they're first in the NFC West at 8-6. Last team Casino, I had a question of or what questions got answered was the Denver Broncos winning 9-5, or they're now 9-5 after winning against the Colts, scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter. What questions were answered about the Broncos?
Oh man, honestly, I don't know. They are 9-5. Like that's kind of where I have them. I don't have much to say. Bo Nix is good. He can throw. Yeah, he threw 3 interceptions, but I don't know. They're a good team. They are a playoff caliber team, but I don't think they're anything after that. I think they're right there in that same boat as the Texans, as the Chargers. Like they're going to get in the playoffs, but I would not be worried about this team.
So the Broncos, I think the question that got answered is the Broncos defense is really good. This game was what 13-10
I
for
mean,
most of the
r-
game until the fourth quarter.
right? That's true. Their defense is good, but also Anthony Richardson, he
Is
doesn't.
bad.
Yeah, he's bad. So he threw 2 more interceptions, this game. He did have a rushing touchdown, but he's not he's not an elite quarterback. He's not even a good quarterback, and
I don't even think he's a starter in this league. I
I
mean,
would agree. I
he
honestly would agree. At this point, I'm so off the Anthony Richardson, like, hype train of trying to say he is a starting quarterback. He's not. And, yes, the Broncos defense picked him twice, but I don't think that's saying much.
yeah. Well, what I wanted to say about the Broncos defense was they have allowed the least amount of touchdowns of any team in the NFL. They've only allowed 24 offensive touchdowns. So I feel like when you're a bend don't break
That's fair.
defense that stops people from scoring, you
I
can
mean,
go
it worked
deep
for
in the
years for
playoffs.
Belichick.
Yeah, and that was also the defense that the Eagles got both to the Super Bowl, even though their defense was questionable. Obviously, they won one, lost one with that kind of bend don't break defense, but they're the eighth total defense in the league right now. But again, this is what happens with rookie quarterbacks, right? They have good games and then they have bad stretches where you throw 3 interceptions. So I still think Bo Nix is good, but if anything, the question got answered is Bo Nix doesn't have to be perfect for this Broncos team to win games
That's a
with their
good point.
defense.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
move on, Casino, to our next segment, which is Super Bowl or bust, and this is the teams that are right below the elite teams. Okay, so I'm talking about four teams in particular, and we'll talk about their games. And if you could see this team not winning the Super Bowl, but getting to the Super Bowl. Okay, so multiple playoff victories. The first one, we saw them last night, Monday Night Football. They had a ho hum game against the Bears, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. So the Minnesota Vikings last night win 30-12 against the Chicago Bears and are 12-2 right now. If they win out, I believe they would be the number one seed in the NFC. So there's a chance. But do you see a scenario, or can you see it in your mind, where the Minnesota Vikings are in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I can. I mean, their two biggest threats are, their two biggest threats are going to be Philly and the Lions. Like
Yeah.
those are their two biggest threats. Green Bay, good, but not to the caliber of the other three teams there. So yeah, especially if they get home field advantage, I could see them. They've already taken the Lions down to the wire once, right? And that was a close game. It was a great game, absolutely stellar game. And then their only other loss was against the Rams, who are a good team, who we say are going to make the playoffs. And, that was on a short week. I think this team is outstanding. And I think Addison was right. People need to start talking about the Vikings
Yeah, well, that would be my thing with the Vikings is how scary their wide receiver duo is. Their
and
defense
the
right now.
connection that Sam Darnold has with both Jefferson and Addison.
Yeah. Their total defense right now is 13th in the league. And again, we just said how impressive it was that the Broncos have only allowed 24 touchdowns this year. The Vikings have only allowed 27 touchdowns in the league. So they've allowed the third least amount of touchdowns
Yeah,
for
I think
any of the offensive
I
they've
think the
played this
Vikings
year.
people are overlooking, and I think I'm going to start paying attention to them to go to the Super Bowl and to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but also you have to really to put that into perspective, it's also really impressive to be the team allowing the third least amount of touchdowns, especially when you've played, juggernauts like the Rams, like the Lions, like the Packers, like all these teams, like the Texans, all these offensive teams that are going to be legit contenders, maybe outside of the Texans in the playoffs. So I've been you know me, I've been on the Vikings since the beginning, and I said that my only question mark was Sam Darnold. He's passed the test with flying colors, even in a bad game. Like his bad game is most quarterbacks like game where you're just like, oh, he just had an off night. Like Sam Darnold's bad game was 24 for 40, 231, one touchdown, one interception. That's not like, a Jameis Winston three interception game. That's
Right.
um, a a bad game, but not something where you're like concerned for him. And he's done that basically all season. So yeah,
Good points.
I legitimately could see this Vikings team in the Super Bowl. Let's move
Could you
right.
see him winning it?
Well, that depends. I could see them beating. I could see them beating the Ravens.
So they
I
so
don't know
the
if I
answer is
could see.
yes. You could see him winning it.
Yeah, I could see them winning it. I don't know if I would pick them against the Bills or the Chiefs. I don't know. I don't know. But let's move right next door to their neighbor in the NFC North casino, and that is the Green Bay Packers. 10-4. They win 30-13 on Sunday night football against the now 8-6 Seahawks. Do you see this Packers team being a legit Super Bowl contender?
No. I think they're still just behind it. I think they could win one, maybe two. I mean, hell, they could make the conference championship, but I don't see them making the Super Bowl, let alone winning it. So that's out of. But I don't see them making the Super Bowl. No,
Uh,
I think
uh,
I did, but they're young. They're a young team, and in they're good in all aspects of the game. That money is going to get paid. But for a lot of those players, a lot of players in the NFL outside of like the main staples, you have your quarterback, your running backs, your receivers, stuff like that. Um, players don't get paid an exorbitant amount of money. So I think that they're going to be able to keep a lot of these players, especially if they continue to progress. And I think they're going to. So I would say 2 more years and then watch out.
I honestly, the question marks I had for this Packers team have actually kind of been answered since week 12 because they destroyed the Niners, they destroyed the Dolphins,
Bad
they
team.
they
Bad team.
lost by 3 points on a short week to Detroit, and
Good
then
game.
on Sunday Night Football they destroyed the Seahawks. So their last 3 games, they play the Vikings once. If all of a sudden the
Yeah, but
Packers
they
beat
still
the
lost to the
Vikings.
Lions with the Lions not having a lot on their defense. And look what happened with a team that is really good with the Bills. What do? They went in there and they put up points. That's what the Packers needed to do that day. They needed to go in there and win that game and put up some massive numbers. I mean, they did score a lot, but like we needed more to get that W. So that's where I'm at. Is I just they are good. I know they want to play the Bills to get into the Super Bowl, but I don't think that they're good enough to beat the Lions. I don't think they're good enough to beat the Vikings um, or the Eagles. So
Well, my criteria is always, do you have a top
fif-
12 defense in the
yeah,
league, top 12 to 15-ish defense? You have an average defense, and they have the 10th overall total defense in the league. Their passing
yeah, and
defense,
it's a young defense, and that's what I'm saying. Give them a couple more years.
yeah, their passing defense is 15th in the league, and their rushing defense is up, if I can find it right here. The Packers rushing defense is ninth. So they have a good enough defense. I really like Josh Jacobs. I am starting to really like end of the season Jordan Love, which is what got him the giant contract in the offseason, because he kind of just turns it on at the end of the season. And obviously we saw last year where they just annihilated the Cowboys in the playoffs. So again, this was a team that was 3 points away last year from going to the Super Bowl instead of the 49ers. So it's not like this team hasn't been close or doesn't have the resources or didn't get better this offseason. So the only thing I wanted to see was them win against a good team. And not only did they win against a good team, they blew out a good team who at that point was the number 1 seed in the NFC West. So yeah, I think that, and again, I think that was the best game they played all season, and they played some pretty good games. So after this weekend, Casino, I think I'm on the Packers bandwagon. I think they are a team that everybody's focused on the Lions, and then there's people, talk like being like, why aren't people talking about the Vikings? Like we are, like the Packers are kind of just right there. They have 2 more losses than either of those teams, but again, they took both of them to the wire and they play the Vikings again. So I think the Packers are legit. I could see them in the Super Bowl. I really could. Uh, Now, our last one on the Super Bowl or bus train, Casino, the Washington Commanders. They had a rough game this week. They win 20-19 on a failed 2-point attempt by the New Orleans Saints. 9-5 Washington Commanders. Super Bowl? No,
No, no.
I don't think
But
so.
hey, but again, it was nobody had them even making the playoffs except for me. So making the playoffs, that's good for them. You got a foundation now. You got your quarterback. You know what you have. Now work around that. Fix it. Bring in some players, make that team better. So
Yeah. I don't think so either. I don't think they're a legit Super Bowl contender, but I will say the turnaround that defense made from the first half of the season to now the second half has been really impressive in total
that's fair,
defense.
but
They're now 11th in the league, and they've still allowed 38 touchdowns.
that's
So
fair. But you still look at that team, and then you can't tell me you don't think something's off.
yeah. Well, now the defense has stepped up and the offense has kind of reverted back to, you know, what we've always said about Cliff Kingsbury
Mm.
and how he just kind of falls off during the end of the season. And this is proof that, they're scoring 19 points against a banged up New Orleans Saints team that's 5-9. Where, like you said in the TikTok we recorded about this game, where Kamara was out for most of this game, it was Spencer Rattler, not Derek Carr, and they were still kind of neck and neck with the Commanders for most of the game, hanging around, and then we're a 2-point conversion away at the end of the game from winning.
And they
So,
should have, because Rattler just didn't see the wide open guy.
yeah. So, yeah, I don't think the Commanders are contenders, but I wouldn't be shocked if, they maybe won one or two in the playoffs, surprise some people. Next up, Casino, is my number or the number one pick or the number one Tuesday talking point that I wanted to
Question,
talk
yeah.
about was just want to talk about the two big games that happened. So, first up, let's talk about Lions and Bills, the marqueeest of marquee games all season
And
long.
it did not disappoint.
I don't think it disappointed, but I
That's
don't
what
think
people
it
wanted?
I don't think it was the game that everybody was expecting because the Bills were basically in control of this game the entire time. The Lions just kept playing catch up, and at no point did I ever think Detroit was going to win this game. It was
Yeah, they needed
especially,
to start off with a little bit of mustard, but
yeah, especially when Buffalo comes out 14 to, I didn't get it. What? What
I
was your
said they should have
joke?
started off with a little bit more mustard. You said they were playing catch up the whole game.
I'm gonna leave that in. I'm not gonna edit around that.
Good.
But yeah, Buffalo came out immediately, goes 14 to nothing, and on the couch when I was watching this game, I was like, "Oh no, is this just gonna be a Buffalo blowout?" But then Detroit having like one of the most historic team runs in a second quarter, like they were just on the broadcast, they wouldn't stop talking about just how the Lions have like the best second quarter points getting offense in like NFL history, which is such a weird, you know, first off, weird stat to know, and then a weird record to have, where you're just like the best second quarter NFL team in NFL history. But Detroit comes back, puts up 14. Buffalo puts up 7 before halftime. And then it was kind of just Detroit. I felt like playing catch up the entire second half and then kind of just garbage points in the fourth quarter. But really, the talking point in this game, Casino, is did Dan Campbell go for
That
an onside kick too early?
way too early.
I think
Way too early. I mean, you know your offense is gonna score. Like that second half, as you just said, all those stats, your offense is gonna give you a chance to win this game. And they did. Like they did. And you were down 10 points with 10 minutes to go. You know, it was two scores. That's plenty of time. That's plenty of time. You get one stop. That's me right there. You don't trust your defense, which again, that defense is riddled with injuries right now, but still way too early. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe, they make a mistake, a rare Bills mistake, but yeah, I thought it was a Dan Campbell's aggressiveness biting him in the ass again.
yeah. And
I mean, it would have been a long like this wasn't for the game, like this wasn't to win the game. This was to help, get yourself in a position to win the game. You were already behind the eight ball, but there was a chance that you could have, so yes, it was aggressive, but it was too early. I'm fine
yeah,
with throwing the onside kick, but it was too early. Do it at the get it into a one-score game and then be like, "Okay, my defense is just destroyed. We've already got one good stop on Buffalo that we needed. I don't think that we can get that again." Because they've been rolling us the entire game.
yeah.
That's how I would have played it. I would have given my defense one chance, and then from there, then I would have done the onside kick even if I was down 2.
I think this might have been the game where I'm like, maybe Detroit doesn't have it this season. Maybe they're not going to win it. And last season, after, the Lions lost in the playoffs, and then Dan Campbell did that, impassioned speech where he was like, it's really hard to get back here. And it's just like, Yeah, this is what he was talking about. Like the Lions again are a 12-2 team. They have the 26th passing defense in the entire NFL and then the what, 6 rushing defense. So again, you can't run on this Lions team, but you can damn sure pass on them. And I think also when you talk about the Bills as well, like the Bills right now, their passing defense is 25th in the league, and then their running attack or their rushing attack is 14th in the league. So, despite how bad Detroit's defense has looked, the Bills' defense is worse. And again, you back to back weeks put up 40 plus points, and in one of those games, you lose, right? Where they just played the Rams last week and put up 40 points and still lost. So, even on when you're having a great offensive day, if you're the Bills team, you can still lose because your defense can't stop anybody. So again, everybody's going to give Dan Campbell shit, including us, for going on the 2 point or the onside kick too early, which I do think that was too early. But again, with how many injured defensive players this Lions team has, they're just trying to not only hold like the defense together, they're literally just trying to find guys to put out there to have enough players on defense to compete with other teams. And I think yeah, Detroit's defense, and I don't think they're going to get enough guys back by the time the playoffs start. So they're going to have to win every game in a shootout. And when you look at the NFC teams in the that are going to be in the playoffs, the Eagles can offensively hang with them. We just saw the Buccaneers put up 40 points against a better defense than the Lions. So the Buccaneers can put up 40 points on them. The Rams, we just saw go toe to toe with the Bills. They can put up 40 points on them. So,
Yeah. So this is gonna. They got to get that. They got to get some players back. They got to get it figured out.
yeah. And then the last two would be the Vikings and Packers, who we've seen every game with the Vikings, Packers, and Lions basically be a 3 point game. So the Lions, I mean, if I was Detroit, if I was the Lions, I'd be scared after this game. Like, man, we literally have to score every possession we have because we can't get one stop. We can't. It's It's concerning. But then for the Bills casino, with this win, did they establish themselves as the best team in the AFC?
Um, yes. Again, I can't put the Chiefs ahead of the Bills right now. I just can't. I just can't.
Yeah.
It's because what the Bills are doing, they look like just the eye test. They look like a team that is built to win. The Chiefs just look like a team that are scraping by week to week.
Yeah.
That's I
Well,
mean, it's just watching the games. I know that I see the record, I see the record and I see that the Chiefs are still winning. That's fine, but it's how they're winning, how these teams are winning, who they're winning against.
yeah. Well, and also we just talked about all the teams in the NFC that can win in a shootout against Detroit. I mean, you look at the AFC and the Chiefs would be one of those teams where you're like, if this is a shootout, I don't think they have enough firepower to win in a shootout against the
They don't.
Bills.
They don't.
Like,
Pachenko is back, but he's not playing great. He's still playing like he's, not 100%. So that you take kind of him out of the equation right now. You count him in for maybe 40 to 50 yards a game. You
yeah.
know,
But then again, how many years have we seen Bills beat Chiefs in the regular season, Chiefs beat Bills in the postseason?
I
It's
understand, but
every year.
it is every year, but I feel like this year is different. You just watch these teams play. You just watch these teams play. And yes, the Bills already beat them, but you take that game out of it. I you take that game out of it, and I just can't see the Chiefs beating the Bills. I just can't see that happening, even if it has to go through Arrowhead, which it's going to.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, also Bills total defense, 23rd in the league.
Okay, but
It's
do
out
you
of my
trust
window.
Patrick? Okay, but do you trust Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah. In the playoffs, when have you ever has he ever not been trustworthy in the playoffs? Like this season, they're 13-1, and we can't point to one good game and say that they played well in.
Right, okay,
Like,
that's a fair point, but this is also the worst season he's ever had. It's not like he's rolling into the playoffs, with another decent season or another really good season. He's playing the worst season he's ever played in the NFL.
yeah, and
So do
they're
you think he just
still
magically turns on
13
his
and 1.
Right,
But
okay, we've talked about what's happening. It was a field goal that got the linebacker just fell back. They blocked it. It was a doinker off the post and in. Like, it was a toe, it was a coin flip. Like, I tell you right now, I believe the Bucks would have won that game if they got the coin flip, and Baker knew it too. Like, so again, I just luck is so on their side right now that I just can't see that always going to be the case when they play juggernaut teams.
I'm gonna coin a phrase. People, I won't trademark it. You can run with this if you want. I won't take any credit. I'm just pulling this off the top of my head. Defense wins championships. Okay. It's never been said before. You can say it after this. The Chiefs right now have the fifth total defense in the entire NFL. So, how they're going to win against the Bills is they're going to keep the game close. And then they're going to kick a late field goal. And then they're going to win like they always do against the Bills in the playoffs. Because, again, the Bills defense is, you keep saying Patrick Mahomes is the worst he's ever been. The Bills defense feels like it's the worst it's been since Josh Allen has been on this version of the Bills. Like, usually they were the ones that had the lights out defenses. Now it just feels like defense is kind of
All right.
shaky, and it's getting shakier. Like, look at the last 2 weeks. They let up 40 points to the Rams and to the Lions. So it's like, now again, those are two of the best offenses in the league, but they're not. You still shouldn't be putting up 40 points against them.
Yeah, but the Bills, when they played them last, only held the Chiefs 21 points.
Yeah, but again, you look at what the Chiefs have done against other teams. Usually when they score, I mean, they haven't scored 30 all season. So it's
Okay,
not like
but and
they're
I would
playing
much rather.
shootout
I
games.
mean, okay, but
I'm
going
rooting for the Bills.
but
I
look, we're
just don't
talking.
see it.
You're talking about that, and but like the last games that the Chiefs have played, yes, they stopped the Browns, but guess what? The Browns have no offense. Okay, they only let the Browns score 7. Besides that, Chargers 17, Raiders 17, Panthers 27, Bills they let score 30 on them, Broncos 14. So yeah, these are low numbers, but also in these games, the Chiefs are not putting up massive offensive numbers. They're not. So you're saying that the Bills defense is not a great defense. Well, guess what? The Bills still put up 30 points on them. Like, I, the Chiefs just couldn't score against a bad defense.
Yeah.
So I that's where I don't think Patrick Mahomes and company and offense can put up enough points against even a bad defense to beat juggernaut offenses. I just can't see it.
Yeah, but see, you're saying what if in the playoffs the Chiefs play a Bills game? I'm saying what if the Bills have to play a Chiefs game where they're just playing a 21-17 type game. I would take the Chiefs in that
Dude, the
game
Chiefs have
all
only scored 30
season.
points twice this
But that's
entire
but
season.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, what if it doesn't get to the point where it's a shootout? I'm saying, what if it's a nose to the grindstone 21-17 type game? You're going to pick the Chiefs in that type of game because that's the type of game
No,
they've been playing all
no, I
season.
no, I'm gonna pick the Bills in this, dude. So I just gave you that the Chiefs have not scored over 30 points.
I'm saying they
More
won't
than
need to. That's my
okay,
point.
well, the Bills 34 points, 31 points, 47, 35, 34, 31, 30, 30, 30, 35, 44, 48.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's not going to be that type of game with the Chiefs. It just won't.
but I'm
The Bills are
saying,
going to put up numbers.
look at every Chiefs Bills game. They're never shootouts. They're never shootouts. They never have shootout games. They have games where it's 2, 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Like, both the Chiefs and the Bills can play that game because they've played it all season. And again, we've just sound like broken records where it's the Bills beat the Chiefs during the regular season. Everyone gets on the Bills hype train.
Okay,
And
so
then the
let me just
second game
that's
is going to
fair.
be
Fair point.
in. Kansas City, and
That's
it's
fair
gonna
point,
be
but let me
yeah.
bring it up this time around. So, the Chiefs always beat the Bills in the playoffs because roles are typically reversed a little bit, right? So maybe this is just the new, with this new setup with both of these teams, maybe that's just, the winning
Formula?
formula.
I don't know. I don't know. But let's move on to the other game we were talking about, Casino, and that was Eagles Steelers. With the Eagles Steelers, Eagles win 27-13 to improve to 12-2. The impressive stat in this game was in the second half of football. The Pittsburgh Steelers only had, I believe, they only had 2 drives in the entire second half. Yeah, if you look at it, they had a fumble that was a total of 5 plays that took 2 minutes, and then they had a punt after 9 plays for 3 minutes and 48 seconds. So, basically, in the second half of this game, the Steelers had a 5-minute and 50 seconds, offensive, what do you want to call that? Where they just had time of possession. That's the word I was looking for. So they had 5 minutes, 50 seconds of total time possession in the entire second half of this game. The Eagles then proceeded to end the game on a 99-yard, 23 play drive that took 10 minutes and 29 seconds after going for 14 plays, 74 yards, and in 6 minutes and 33 seconds for a touchdown, also in the fourth quarter. So the beginning of this game was 17-13 going into halftime, and most of those points were gifted to the Steelers on a great TJ Watt punch out that was a fumble on Jalen Hurts, which is one of those things where you can't even be mad at Jalen Hurts for fumbling the ball in that position because TJ Watt made such a great play on the ball and just perfectly punched it out. He did the Peanut Tillman punch out.
Oh yeah, you can't be mad at that play, like where Hurts being prone to fumbles. You can't
No,
be mad at that play. That was just an outstanding punch out.
32 out of 32 quarterbacks are fumbling on that play. So that's one of those ones where you have to give credit instead of blame to, Watt over Hurts.
Oh
But
yeah, it was a perfect wind up just in.
yeah,
Yeah. And is there any update on TJ Watt?
I think he's, well, again, the same thing with Watt and with Mahomes is I think both of them would play if the next game wasn't on Saturday. So that's the weird, scheduling thing. And then I think they both play on Christmas or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, the Steelers offense,
Yeah, it's saying that he is it's tender, but he's walking around comfortably, and they're optimistic that he'll play versus the Raven.
yeah. So hopefully he gets back because again, he might be the best defensive player in the league. He is like a game wrecker and he jumps off the screen when you are especially playing against him. But I think really for the Steelers coming out of this game, the question mark to me is how good is this Steelers offense, especially when they don't have George Pickens? Because it seemed to grind to a halt when it came to passing attack. Calvin Austin the third and Pat Fryermuth were basically the only two wide receiver and tight end targeted on the entire offense from Russell Wilson, who was running for his life the entire game from that Eagles defense. So yeah, this made me
Yeah, not having him was big blows on the team.
yeah, but then again, Quinton Mitchell has just shut down every number one wide receiver they've played this season. So even if he was in the game, I don't know how much he would have contributed. But yeah, I think the question marks coming out of this game, again, most people after this game are like, what's wrong with the Steelers instead of how good are the Eagles? Which
Yeah,
I feel like is interesting because the Eagles still, after this week, number one defense in the league and have allowed the second fewest touchdowns in the league behind the Broncos. So they don't let you score, they don't let you get yards, and they also
and then
are,
they have the best running back in the league and one of the best quarterbacks, top 3 in the league.
yeah, I think honestly, right now at this point, it has to be what Mahomes probably Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and then Jalen Hurts. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's top 5 against,
Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield.
yeah, are like in that mix. But I just think in terms of what he's doing right now, and again, the whole thing coming into this game was like, oh, well, they need to get the passing game going. They need to get the passing game going. The Steelers completely shut down the Eagles' rushing attack, and the Eagles and Hurts and Smith and AJ Brown just picked them apart through the air. So the Eagles can beat you with great defense. They can beat you with a great rushing attack. They can beat you with a great passing attack. So I think they're the best team in the league, Casino, and I don't even think it's up for debate at this point. I don't get
Uh,
why we're
After
debating it.
last weekend,
Yeah. But are you ready to do our power rankings, or do you have to get out of here?
you have to get out of here. We can do that. Make it a short one tomorrow, just for
All
power
right.
rankings.
Tomorrow on Wednesday, we will just put up our power rankings. So be back here probably about the same time that I upload this will be the power rankings. So I'm Will. That's Casino over there. This has been the Only Sports Podcast. Adios.